Soul Simmers, this was the Imaginary Friends Q&A on September 10th. It was supposed to be scheduled for 30 minutes, so people got to ask questions. So if you're not already in the Sims 4 official Discord server, be sure to join because they seem to post a lot of information about the new expansion pack in the Discord forum more than they do anywhere else. So people were able to ask whatever questions they wanted, and then there was a producer. So this is Molly, one of the Sim gurus, who was answering questions about the Imaginary Friends. She was one of the devs that worked on the Imaginary Friends system. So one question that was asked is, what age can we make the Imaginary Friends real? Once your child sim has made an imaginary friend and that child sim ages up to a teen, if they're good enough friends with their imaginary friend, they can offer to make the doll real, which allows them to turn their imaginary friend into a real teen sim. So it's a good incentive not to neglect or be mean to them as a kid. So I think that's really interesting. And we saw that in the gameplay trailer where it looked like he aged up to a teen, Nigel, the blonde-haired guy in the video, and then he aged his friend up, which was really cool. So when imaginary friends are made real, what do they look like, or will it be randomized? So each of the 4 made real looks are consistent based on their original child imaginary form. So for example, if you make a pretty Pentacorn real, she'll look like this at first. But once you've made them real as a teen, you can customize them and create a sim if you want, just like any other sim. So I actually want to make this image a little bit bigger because we did see the first one. He was in the gameplay trailer. And this is the corresponding doll here to the left. The second one is Pretty Pegacorn, and this is the creative doll, we're assuming, because each doll is supposed to have a different personality type. And then this is the evil doll, and this is what she looks like fully grown. And then this is, I forget which one this is supposed to be. We're supposed to have goofball, creative, evil, and maybe it was adventurous. And this is the 4th one. But you can customize them and create a sim once you've made them big. So no pressure if you have a preference for them having maybe different clothes or different hair. To me, my favorite one is going to end up being, when they're made into real, is going to end up being the creative one. I'm loving that little bow tie in her hair. So, and I think they're very, very cute. And even a lot of people agreed that, oh gosh, they look so darling. So another question asked is, are there any unique moodlets or interactions between the sim who can see the imaginary friend with those who cannot? Yes, children will get a variety of buffs or interactions unique to their imaginary friend. Other sims will see them talking to no one, like a sim with the erratic trait. So that's going to be interesting. And we saw a little bit of that in the reveal trailer where only he could see the imaginary friend because he hadn't made it real yet. So at the moment, imaginary friends can only be made from one of the 4 Imagine Me dolls that comes with the new Adventure Awaits expansion pack. There isn't any option to turn previous existing stuffed animals like the giant teddy bears in The Sims 4 into imaginary friends, which kind of makes sense that they want to lock the feature behind the new pack. So by default, the imaginary friends have the following personalities. So Little Monster is a goofball. Pretty Pegacorn is evil. Oh, I didn't expect that. Crafty Kid is creative, and Wild Child is competitive. I don't know why I thought Pretty Pegacorn would be creative. That's interesting. However, you can customize these before turning the doll into an imaginary friend. Until any doll can have any personality, it's up to you. Okay, so you can flip it around. So the way it is based on the picture is it's evil. No, it's goofball, evil, creative, competitive. I feel like those should have been switched. So that's super interesting. And then going on down, you can buy the doll in build mode. There's no limitations. You just have to have enough simoleons, which is actually pretty helpful to know. Okay, so when you turn your imaginary friend into a real teen sim, they will join the household, but as a roommate. You can adopt them into the family if you wish. It is totally up to you. They will have a randomized name, but you can always change it and create a sim to your heart's desire. So basically like any other sim. That's actually really interesting that they're going to be a roommate that you're friends with already. Because you know the roommate system does exist in The Sims 4 where you can rent out a room if you have a spare room or bed. But that is Interesting. So, is there any other way a sim other than the child who has the imaginary friend can see them? No, they are invisible. Other sims will see the doll sitting on the ground. The sim with the imaginary friend doll disappears when they spawn into their imaginary friend form and when they're actually walking around and interacting and things like that. Will there be any limitations on what the imaginary friend doll can do once they're turned real? No, they are fully fledged real sims. Okay, which is interesting. Is there any option to get them as a baby gift? I always thought that idea was adorable. So for those of you who have Growing Together, there is a baby shower event in the Growing Together expansion pack where sometimes if you have a good baby shower event and you get silver or gold, you get a gift from other people who attended the baby shower. Could you get this as a gift? I would be curious to see if that's an option. So when they become real, you can use them like a real sim, and they can have children once they become an adult, which makes sense to me anyways, because teens can't have children in The Sims 4 without specific mods. So does the baby of an imaginary friend who's been turned real have any sort of special traits or powers? Since the made real sim isn't an occult, they're just a normal sim. There are no specific traits or special traits passed down. It's their chance to be a real sim after eons and being imaginary. So it's not going to be like the Life and Death expansion pack where if you had a sim with the Grim Reaper, they had a special trait for being a child of Grim. Because these are not occults, they're just imaginary friends turned real. They don't have any specific traits. I feel like that's a missed opportunity. It would have been interesting to see that maybe they would have a specific trait, like, hey, they're have a better propensity of enjoying imaginary friends, or they can make imaginary friends turn real faster, or something special for being a kid of one, but I guess not. Okay, so the personality of the imaginary friend will shape the interactions of how they interact with the child. So imaginary friends will recommend different kinds of activities to do together based on their personality. So creative imaginary friends will recommend arts and crafts. Competitive might recommend active activities, or competitive ones like video games. Evil ones will recommend mischief and other bad behavior. If you have an evil imaginary friend, the child can practice mean interactions on them, strengthening their relationship. The evil imaginary friend will love it and encourage it. Then eventually, if the child heeds the advice of the evil imaginary friend enough, they will gain the budding evil persona trait, which might allow them to discover the evil trait when they age up, if they so choose. So it seems like they did, because normally in The Sims 4, there's not a lot of negative consequences in the game. So I do think it's interesting to see that if you use the evil imaginary friend, that might lead your sim down the path of villainy, but we'll see. Can imaginary friends remain with the Sims once they turn into young adult and older? Yes, if they're turned into a real sim. Otherwise, you can keep the doll around. It has the option to seek comfort from an old friend or frenemy, giving mood bonuses based on our relationship with the imaginary friend as a child. So the bulk of the gameplay, if you want to play with them as your sim ages, is to actually make them real. So that's going to be interesting. How autonomous are imaginary friends? They'll suggest things to do together, but they'll mostly hang around with their attached child. Once they're there to befriend them and to be there for them. So they're not going to do very much autonomously, which kind of makes sense because they're not really their own person until you create them into a real sim. Are all the human form Create-A-Sim pieces available in Create-A-Sim, even if they're only unlocked in build buy mode? The human form outfits are unlockable in cast if made real, or by cheating, but you didn't hear that from me. Cool, because some of the outfits actually were kind of interesting. I wouldn't mind that in the future. Can your sim have more than one imaginary friend at a time? Not at this time. If one imaginary friend per child and one imaginary friend per doll at a time. So if you're unhappy with your imaginary friend, your child sim always has the option to say goodbye forever, and you can purchase a new doll to switch it up. But how could you? So that's cool. If you're not bonding, like let's say you get the evil imaginary friend and you're kind of not feeling it after a bit, you can say goodbye forever and get a new imaginary friend. So that's going to be an interesting little feature. Okay. So for those of you asking what it takes to actually imagine up the imaginary friend to turn them into an actual sim, The full process, you would buy the doll from build mode. The child can then play with the doll as normal, tell it secrets, pour out its heart, carry it around, things like that. There is a requirement to make them into an imaginary friend. You have to reach creativity level 3. You have to befriend the doll. So you have to talk to it or play with it to gain enough relationship that's visible in a relationship panel, or be suffering from loneliness so much that the child needs a friend now. Then they can turn the doll into their imaginary friend. So that's a little bit of a work to get there, but I don't think it's any harder than it was in The Sims 3. I think it did take a little bit of skill. It wasn't like an instant thing. So are those the only 4 imaginary friend designs right now? Are there any recolor options? So there's only 4 designs, no recolors at this time. We wanted to give a variety of options compared to the single model offered in The Sims 3 imaginary friends. This is reflective of their default personality and the diverse stories you'd want to tell. That's pretty cool. Can you order one as a gift from the phone or a computer for your child? Not a fan of buying directly from build mode, but I can always make a retail store. It's like you could sell them at a retail store. So if you have Get to Work or Businesses and Hobbies and you open up a small retail store, you can sell the imaginary friends, but it doesn't sound like you can order one from the phone or computer. Okay, so evil imaginary friends can teach children how to set fires, which I don't think is something we currently have in The Sims 4, because Sim children can't cook in The Sims 4, so there is no way to set a fire. So that would be interesting to see what that looks like. The evil imaginary friend sounds like they have the most unique gameplay to them out of all of it, but I could be wrong. Okay, and one thing to note, personalities and names can be personalized on the doll until you turn them into an imaginary friend. Once the friend is imagined up, they're locked into that name and that personality. But you can always change things around once they age up to a teen if made real. So that's interesting. Only children can imagine up imaginary friends or see their own imaginary friend. They are invisible to everyone else. So adults with the goofball trait cannot use imaginary friends, which I think is also a missed opportunity, because I think the childish or goofball trait in The Sims 4 would make sense for this pack to be able to have imaginary friends. The imaginary friends can attend high school if they're made real and added to the household, just like any other Sim. So that's cool if you have high school years. So those are their teen forms. The Crafty Kid and Wild Child forms have not been shared yet. Oh. We haven't seen it in the trailer. So we saw in the gameplay trailer and the reveal trailer, the goofball imaginary friend looks like a big orange doll when it's an imaginary friend. And we saw the one that looks like the My Little Pony. But we haven't seen the other 2 in their imaginary friend form before they're aged into a real adult. So that's cool. I don't know why the message couldn't be loaded, but one answer, we fully player driven. There will not be random imaginary friends running around rampant. So you have to trigger the game to make them transition into an imaginary friend. If not, they just stay a doll. When they're made real, it can only be done with a child who's imagined them up as the child ages. Then they become real as a teen. So you're not going to have a teen imaginary friend with a child sim, which kind of makes sense. So there's tons. We will recommend oodles and oodles of activities from across all packs based on their personality. For example, creative imaginary friends might suggest cross-stitching if you own cottage living, or knitting if you own nifty knitting. So it's cool that there is cross-pack play, because I would think you get bored if you only have the activities from base game and Adventure Awaits, which is a new expansion pack. So only child sims can make imaginary friends, and only that child that imagines them up can see them. Which I think she covered that before. People are asking a lot of repetitive questions, and I think it's hard. There's only one sim guru in the chat. So she cut it off at about 1:35. So she had hit all of her time limits, but she did say there's going to be a wrap-up summary, and she'll try to answer questions they haven't gotten to yet. So let's see if she answered anything else. It doesn't look like it. And I didn't see a wrap-up post at the end there, so I don't know if she got to that or not. But yeah, there were people having like the time of their lives in here. Even after she stopped responding, I think they were still posting. So they said, as of 4:35, on September 10th. They said they'll have a summary up soon recapping the Q&A with Molly. So I haven't seen the summary yet. When the summary becomes available, I'll be sure to cover that as well. We learned some stuff. I think it does seem like there were a few missed opportunities in my opinion. Like the childish or goofball traits for teens and up should be allowed to have imaginary friends. I'm kind of confused why they're not allowed to have an imaginary friend after the childhood phase if they have certain traits. But I do like that there's a variety and that you have some say in what personality they have. So hopefully the wrap up will come up soon. I don't think any other news has dropped today other than the gameplay trailer and this Q&A. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the imaginary friends?